1997, I had an idea, which was essentially, I like personal development. I like these certain authors. Of course, Bob was one of them. I like, and I'm going to use this. If I like it, I know somebody else has to like it. And if you use your time frame, if you go back to like 95, 96, 97, there was this misconception that all it was dirty adult stuff on the internet. Well, I knew that wasn't true. You know what I mean? You got to kind of use your frames. So I just connected people with, people's websites. And I really thought I was doing something. I really thought I was doing something. And looking back, it was just little actions. But let me tell you what little actions can do. If anybody that's been online, now we think about the Google search engine, but if you use your time frame, you'll remember that everybody used to use the Yahoo directory. That was the big driver of traffic, you know what I mean? And it was a human person. You couldn't game this thing. It was a human person. So back then there was a category called self-improvement. I mean, we didn't have all the different categories like you do now. And what's interesting about that was somebody, some way, looked at my ugly links page. I'll admit, it was one of the ugliest web pages on the internet. It'd be too much to find it, but if you get in the Wayback Machine, you can see it. I'll draw pictures of it. You got little circles, and then they link to other people's websites, and I had beautiful little backgrounds of a wood grain in the squares. And that was it. But somebody saw value in that at Yahoo and put me in a list of those 20 people. And I looked up, and I didn't know what happened, so I started paying more money, and then I found out what happened was millions of people, literally, started going to this little web page. And so my dream became, it filled in the details for me. Now you got to understand, please don't hear that and think that happened because it was just an idea. You must know that even though I was limited in what I could do, I did what I could do. I learned how to write more ugly web pages. I learned how to create more links. Key thing that I did, I took the time to do the things, the people skills in that book, and apply those to the relationships and send them through email. So when they talk about Twitter and things like that, those are great for building relationships, but it is the same thing that we were doing originally with email, the telephone and whatever. It's not to diminish it, it's just to tell you that it's a powerful thing. And so I was building real connections. And now, so that is that part of the story. Now, let's back up to about the time, I think last time we were talking about I was about 11, 12 years old, and we went through the financial hardship. So my father starts the business, and I had the opportunity, and this was there were two major things that were huge for me, aside from what I do now, and I've told you. One was I had an opportunity when I was about, right before the summer before I turned 16 years old, to work in our father's business. Now, it was not happening off of the kitchen table or the dining room table anymore. We'd moved to a side, literally almost a broom closet, of another friend of his. So we still didn't have an office space that we could bring people to, but we could drive our cars to it and it would look cool, So he says, there was no money to let me do minimum wage. There was no money to pay me to take out the trash. So he created a job. My father just had a sales background. He created a job, and he said, Josh, you're going to get in what they call the reverse directory. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that, but you got numbers and you cross-reference it. And he said, I'm going to write a script for you. Now, you got to remember, I'm 15 years old. And, isn't it amazing when you, are just excited about doing something that, somebody could say, I'm going to give you, I can give you anything. I want you to go door to door and sell it. And if you think you're excited about it, you're just going to do it because you know it's supposed to be hard. So I've got a reverse index. I've got a script. And he tells me, I want you to call these people, and you'll set appointments, and then you'll earn commission based on when we close them. Fortunately, my father, he didn't have the decks weren't completely stacked against me because my father was a brilliant salesperson, and we had a brilliant product. That was the key. So the sales did happen. But that was my first job. I didn't know it was supposed to be hard, so I bought into it hook, line, sinker, and I got no, but yes. And I got so excited, and that was the one thing that moved me forward. And from that, I started getting excited about, I would pick up an entrepreneur magazine or whatever, and just all kinds of cool stuff. And that was a huge thing that got me, it was just a real big moment in my life. But from that, a person that was a mentor of mine who since has passed said to me, a loan officer, and he said, Josh, he said, you, and this is huge, so please get this. He told me, he said, Josh, you can get good over time at this thing called sales. And guess what? If you stick with it long enough, you'll pick some stuff up and you might get good. Or you can be proactive. And you can pick up a book, you can pick up a tape, you can pick up a program like all these incredible speakers have offered. You can pick them up, and you can live on purpose. Okay, because one way or another, your time's going to pass. It's going to happen. So I got that. I went to the Sam's and bought a book by Zig Ziglar called Over the Top. It's actually kind of a prequel to See You at the Top. At the time, I was 15 years old, 35 now. I bought into this thing called personal development. And at a young age, I got good at telephone sales. I got good at communication. Now, I couldn't meet face-to-face because there's some things you are insurmountable at that point. But I was going to get older and that'd be taken care of. So, or, when you hear the rest of the story, so I thought. So, went on for several years. Really thought that a lot of my situation, I was ahead of a lot of people in my peer group, certainly. Thought I had a lot of my path figured out. But around 18 years old, the idea came out that I was going to have the opportunity to step it up a little bit and do in-person meetings and this kind of thing. Maybe get to a point where I was groomed for the business, what have you. And I remember it like it was yesterday. 18 years old, go to make a phone call like I'd done plenty of times. I was good at this stuff. Go to do it, and I couldn't spit out a word I wanted to say. And I can't even stress to you enough. And since then, I've put a name on that thing, and I call it a blocking tick. And it was literally, it's like I'm not diminishing stutter, but it's a stutter times like 20 or 30. And if you ever are fortunate or unfortunate enough to hear some old teleseminars and what have you, people that have known me a long time, they'll tell you I couldn't spit out a word I wanted to say. And guess what happened to me in that moment? Everything that I thought I was good at, everything I thought I knew, everything I thought I'd accomplished, whoop, was gone. Or so I thought. And as a result, I dealt with a lot of anxiety. It was like, Josh, you got to get another plan. Because what are you going to do? You know what I'm saying? What are you going to do? Now, the interesting dynamic of that was I was limited in a lot of ways. I will confess that I allowed myself to be limited all those ways. But guess what? I don't care. I was 18 years old, and that was okay. Because I found out later I had this thing called personal development on my side. So even during these hard times, extremely hard times, I was still learning ideas, and I was still trying to do the best I could do. And since I was still moving in action, the idea that I showed you guys up there came up. Now, you have to put this in context. I'm going on for years where I really, literally can't spit out what I want to say. I've got these ideas that I've learned in my head. I'm still articulate here. I've still got these ideas that I've internalized and made my own and want to share with all my heart. But I don't have the convenience to be able to do something that we all took for granted, right? I can't spit it out in an articulate way, literally. And so, in that moment, you either become stuck, and let me just, I want to drive this point home. I've had people, during that time, I had people recommend that I look at Social Security. And I would have qualified for Social Security. I was unemployable. This is coming from a family that was building a business. See what I'm saying? This was a real thing. It didn't happen, okay? Fortunately, it didn't happen, okay? I just did the best I could do. So then later on, I get the opportunity, I have the idea to start this site. And I don't really know how the details are going to happen. Like I said, I just started out with the idea of sharing, these resources with other people. But guess what? Email was the big thing. Remember, I can't talk. I don't have to talk. And my workaround became my biggest ally. Because I didn't have to answer the phone. And what I felt like to myself, like a bumbling idiot sometimes, I never was, but I felt like it. I didn't have to look like that in my own heart to the other people because I used my workaround. I used it well.